Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm taking you on a journey into my pocket. Woo! That's right, we are covering the pocket edition of Yokai Septet, which is great because I don't have too many pocket games. I tried to do Monopoly Pocket, but really this does not fit into a pocket. In fact, we're gonna pull over this rolly chair here. It's never good to stand on a rolly chair, but for purposes of a YouTube video, we are going to. So as you can see, Monopoly Pocket doesn't fit into the pocket. What I have had in the pocket in the past is my Operation Pocket. As you can see, this is a hoot. You know, you bring this along to parties. Oh, you can barely hear it. Do you hear that at all? Yeah, it's pretty dead. But look, you can grab the tweezers and pull out the heart. Then you have to kind of shove it back in. But speaking of shoving it back in, see, look at this. Right into the pocket. And the old version of Yokai Septet, as you can see here, an amazing game. We've covered it in the channel on the past. This actually was top 5, I believe. Maybe top 6 or 7. Definitely top 10 of the recent bracket of top trick-taking games, as voted by trick-taking fans. As you can see, this can't fit in the pocket. I think you probably could because these jeans are... But that doesn't prove my point. As you can tell, you can't fit this in the pocket, but look at this. See this bad boy, which is about a half tall, maybe like quarter, 25% wide. Look at this. With ease. Right in the pocket. So, we are going to be covering Yokai Septet Pocket. Just the differences. The gameplay's not changed. It's actually same gameplay, just the differences of the box size and the components, because now it fits perfectly into your trip to the movies, the picnic, the pub, anything you want. You can have one of the best trick-taking games ever in your pockets. This was sent to me by Dan from Ninja Star Games, so I should have put that at the start. I'll put it in the graphic. I'll put it up at the top. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Dan is a pal, a friend. In fact, Dan also sent me the other game, one of the other 2 games that we're covering today, Cho Han, trick-taking game, which is not able to fit into my pocket, sadly. There's no pocket edition of Cho Han yet, by PAX Guild, and I should say Yokai Septet is by Muneyuki Yokoichi, who did so many other wonderful games. And we're also going to be covering the other PAX Guild game that came out a couple cycles ago at Tokyo Game Market called Trick of Fixer. So the hook of Trick of Fixer is it's kind of like, you know, we've covered games like this in the past, like Napoleon, or Mighty, we covered. It's kind of usually best at 5, and you have 2v3, and the person who bids the most gets to declare trump, and then it's them and a hidden partner against the other 3 people. But there's some more to this game. There's cool moments that incentivize trying to bid to become the declarer. But also there's some wacky cards in it. We will cover those when we go to the table. And then finally, Cho Han trick-taking game. It should be called Cho Han gambling game, because the hook to this is, this might sound familiar because PAX Guild did the wonderful roulette-taking game, which we covered in the past, where it's the game of roulette but turned into a trick-taking game. This is a game that I had not known of or heard of, called Cho Han, and it is essentially the most straightforward gambling game ever. You're just rolling 2 dice, and you're judging whether the sum of them is odd or even. So just completely random. In the game, the trick-taking game, you're doing that through trick-taking. The highest and the lowest card that are played will have a die on each card, and those 2 dice are going to be as if the dice were rolled. So yeah, a little bit of a gambling game. We'll go to the table and show you how to play that. And also I'm going to show you the differences between Yokai Pocket and Yokai Septet, which I have tossed down on the ground. So let's go to the table, and I'll catch you there. Woo! All right, see ya. Bye. 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 We'll start with the comparison of Pocket Edition of Yokai Septet and the original. As you can see, it's just much smaller, so it's about maybe almost half the height, and then a quarter less in the width, and the depth is the exact same. So the cover, you know, kind of just a shrunken version, but it has all the same art. The rulebooks are the same, but as you can see, definitely folded for the tiny version to fit into the box. The big version has the tokens to keep track of the points, whereas in the Pocket Edition, you just have these sliding scales here to keep track of when you're going to win. On the back is also a player aid, and you can take two of them and flip, so the player aid also counts as the score track. Really clever. So it's just a nice way to use cards as a way to save the space of the tokens, but all the cards are the same. As you can see, there's the shiny sevens, or the 7 edition, because the Yokai editions, especially the second edition, had normal 7s and then shiny 7s to play that variant. That variant is not in here. There aren't enough 7s to play that variant, so this is just Yokai Septet, but it does have the shiny 7. Couple things to note about the new Pocket Edition. As you can see, it actually has this looks like a little bit of a convertible, but this small board in the bottom here, kind of like a false bottom, that you can remove if you want to sleeve the cards. Because if I put it back here and I put in all of the cards, you can see that it's pretty close to the top. But again, if you wanted to sleeve, they allow for that option. The other thing that's cool about this edition is it actually has the 2-player rules that Sean Ross came up with, which is so fun. As you can see in the back of the rulebook here, it has the 2-player game, and this is also on Trickster's table if you wanted to try this out. It's absolutely wonderful. Sean did an amazing job. And those are the changes with the Pocket Edition of Yokai Septet. The deck and trick fixer is 4 suits, numbered 2 all the way up to ace, and there's also 1 joker in the deck. Here we have a game of trick fixer set up for 5 players. Depending on the player count, you're going to deal a different number of cards. At 5, it's 10 cards each, with the 3 left over set to the side. At 4, it's 13 each, with a 1 left over to the side. You're going to get 3 tokens for each player. I just have some sail components and some colored cubes here. And 1's going to go to the player to let players remember who they are, and then 1 goes on this Noblesse Oblige track, and then 1 on the score track. You're going to have 2 tokens for the trump, and then kind of the bidding track over here. You're going to have a player aid helper, which is going to help explain what beats what, depending on what trump is. And then you're going to have these cards over here. There are a lot of them. They are going to be kind of possible special rules that could be in the game, depending on what players choose and bid for. So this is pretty similar to Napoleon, the classic game, and we've covered Mighty or other games that do something similar, so this might sound familiar. But essentially, players are going to be going around and around, bidding on who's going to be the boss, and the boss is going to declare trump, how many face cards they think they're going to capture in the hand, and a card that is going to be their secret partner for the round. Also, they could do exchange cards with the cut cards. So a lot of good benefits for the boss. Also in this game, it gives you points if you are the person who bet to be the boss the most. So let's just jump into the gameplay. For the first round, the person who starts bidding on the boss is the person with the most lying cards. Let's say it's Growlithe up here. So Growlithe's going to look at their hand, and maybe they want black to be trump. So they're going to say black, and then they're going to guess how many face cards they want. They can guess anywhere. They could say 18 if they want. There's 20 in the game, so that would be a bit bold. Let's say they just start at 12. So for betting to be the boss, they're going to move once up on the oblige track, and then also they're going to pick one of these 6 rules to go into this kind of river of sorts down here. What these rules do is they change the game up possibly, because sometimes, depending on what players do, that rule might be in play, but it might not. So Growlithe, since they bid, they're going to look over here and they're going to pick this one. This rule will negate the same 2 rule, which I'll explain later, so it doesn't quite matter for now. And what it does is it goes into the firstmost slot, and then a new one comes out. Then it's going to move clockwise to the next player. So Toad Scroll up here. Now Toad Scroll, they can pass. You can always pass. You don't have to bid to be the boss. But maybe they don't want black to be it. Maybe they have a lot of blue in their hand. So they're going to say blue. But then when they bet on how many cards they think they're going to capture, they have to go higher. So maybe they say 13. Then it goes to Flittle. Maybe Flittle, this is getting too rich for their blood. They're just going to pass. Oh, and I forgot to say, Toad Scroll, they're going to move up on the track, and they're also going to pick a card. Maybe they pick this one because it's so simple. This just says as in. This is essentially not a rule. It's as if there's no rule picked. And when they add a card to the river, you just slide them that way. So this one that was on the first one is now on the second one. And again, you always replace. So Flittle has passed. Quaxel, let's say they pass. It gets to Wiglet. Wiglet likes blue. You don't have to change the suit, so maybe they keep it at blue, but they do want to bump it because you always have to bump it if you want this. So you're going to go to 14. They're going to move their thing up 1, and maybe they pick 6. And so this is going to slide over, and I'll explain what those all do in a little bit. So this one comes down. Next is going to come to Growlithe. Maybe Growlithe will go back and say black and 15, and now Growlithe is going to move up 1, and they pick this one. So when this gets full, you're going to actually take the one that flies off, and it goes into the discard. Coming to Toad Scroll, because they haven't passed yet, they could bid if they want. Maybe it is also getting too rich for them. They're going to pass. Flittle has passed, so we ignore them. Quaxel's passed, so we ignore them. So it goes to Wiglet. Wiglet wants to jump back in. Wiglet's going to say blue. Maybe they're going to bump it like crazy because they don't want to keep going back and forth. They're going to go to 17. So that pushes them up. Shouldn't be fill. They're going to pick discard. So discard is going to come over here. That's going to slide up. And then this one is going to come down and move there. Make sure to flip this the right way. So then after Diglett picked, it's going to get back to Growlithe. Maybe then they pass. So now we know who the boss is. It's Wiglet. And the game we're going to play is a blue trump. So you're going to take this player aid, top of player aid, and going to slide it under here. This is going to be what beats what, because blue is trump. So now Wiglet is going to declare a card to be their partner. So looking at their hand, I'm glad they were bidding blue. And they don't have... So the ace in the revolver is the strongest card in the game, unless the Queen of Pipes is played in the same trick, but we'll get over that later. So they're going to say ace revolver is going to be their partner. They don't know who their partner is, but one of these 4 players does, potentially, because after that happens, Wiglet is now going to look at the cut cards, and they're glad the ace wasn't in there, and they're going to kind of cultivate their hand a little bit. So as you can see in here, this shows what the strongest cards are. So it's ace in the revolver, then the jack in the trump suit, then all the 2s are going to win if the suits are the same in a trick, which we'll get into that in the gameplay. Jack of revolver, then the trump suit, ace down to whatever, and then the other suits, as you can see here. So they're looking at this, and so trump's strong. Maybe they just want to short suit themselves, so they're going to take out the pipe, and maybe they keep the ace up there, so maybe they just take out a low revolver. So they are going to lead to the first trick, and it is a must-follow game. So maybe they just lead this ace. Now's a good time to point out these bottom rules down here. So as we were bidding, players were choosing what rules were part of it. The interesting thing is, as you can see, because this is gray and this is light, the first rule does not take effect. So it's always true that the person who becomes the boss actually didn't get to change the last rule. They could have changed an earlier rule, like if 2 people are going back and forth, and they could have picked one of these. But this first one does not take into effect. But if there is 1 on 2 and 3, and there could just be 1, it could just be something on 2, these cards are going to take effect. So let's just look at these. This says we're going to play counterclockwise. So in this case, instead of going to Growlithe next, it's actually going to go to Quaxwell next. And then this one is 6s are now trumps. So 6s get promoted. So in this case, in this trick, so actually maybe we can just do a good example. So this 6 could win the trick. And so this person's looking at the trick, and what's funny is they're on that team. So maybe they don't do that and they just play a low gold. Obviously it doesn't really show this example very well right now, but we're just gonna keep going. So then they play the 3. Toad Scroll is going to come in here, and so they know they're not on the team with the boss, and now's a good time to show off what the 2s do. They're going to play the 2, and then Growlithe is going to come in here, and they're just going to play the 8. So How it works is, let me move this around. There's a hierarchy in this game, and let me lift this up so it's a little bit clearer. There, depending on the trump, because as you can see, they move things around. So if guns is the trump, notice how jack of trump is the second strongest, but if we flip this, when crosses are trump, jack in the crosses are the second strongest. So in this situation, ace of revolvers is the strongest unless it's in the same trick as the queen of pipes, then jack. But as you can see here, if all the suits are the same, the twos actually win. So in this case, well, sadly for Wiglet and Quackswall, the 2 is going to win the trick. So that was played by Toadstool. They're going to win the trick. And this is one of the points that people, or Wiglet and their secret partner, need, because again, they bid that they're going to take 17 of these, so they're now down to just having 19 available because that went to Toadstool. But back to explaining the 6, because we were kind of in the middle of that. The 6s would then just get elevated into the trump suit down here. So the 6s in the pipe, money bag, and revolver would now be on the same level as the 6s in the church thing, but or the cross, but the cross symbol of the 7s and higher of cross would beat the 6s in the other ones. It's almost as if 6 revolver is a 6 cross, if that makes sense. So then we'll slide that back in. So play like this is just going to continue, and if the Wiglet and Quackswall players, they collect enough to hit their bid, they're going to get 3 points each. If they don't, the other 3 players are going to get 2 points each. So let's say they do, and so Quackswall will get 3, and so will Wiglet. They'll move up there. As you can see down here, the game is going to end when there's point threshold. So at 4 players, it's the first player to get to 9 or higher. But at 5 players, it's the first player to get to 13 or higher. At the end of the round, you're going to collect and reshuffle. You're just going to keep doing that until someone hits a threshold. You're also going to discard any cards here that were rules, and you're going to keep this one. So it's kind of seeds the deck a little bit for the next round. And the person who starts bidding in the next round is the person who is losing on points. If that's a tie, it's the person who's losing on the oblige track marker. And so again, at the end of the round, once that's triggered, the person or persons highest and most up here are going to get 2 additional points. And then whoever has the most points at the end of that wins the game of Trick a Fixer. And that's LA. The deck in Cho Han is 1 to 6, kind of. As you can see, there's black and gold. The 1 black is weaker than the 1 gold, so you can think of it as 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5 in a way. The dice are important for the game itself because these are supposed to be dice face that you're betting on, so that's why they have it in this way. But as you can see, 1s, 2s, 3s, all the way up to 6s, and there are 5 suits depending on the player count. So at 3 and 5, there's 5 suits. At 3, you won't use the golds, and then at 4, you actually won't use a suit. But at 5, you'll use all the cards. Here we have the game set up for 4 players, so depending on the player count, you're going to deal a certain number of cards or maybe remove a suit. Like at 4, we remove a suit. We're going to take out the yellow suit, so all the 12 cards and the yellow token. Then we're going to have a bank set aside over here. Every player is going to get 10 bills and a doubling bill. They're kind of yen. Also, in 4, everyone's going to get 12 cards, and they're going to sit at a spot. This is where they're going to be guessing or gambling on whether the outcomes of the dice are going to be even or odd. To finish preparation, everyone's going to look at their hand, and starting with the dealer, let's say this twisted die is the dealer. They are going to put out a suit, and maybe they want blue to be weak. They're going to put that starting there. Maybe the blue token looks, they pick green, the green picks black, and the purple picks red, and now we are prepared for the game. The flow of the game is going to be seen in this card here that sticks with the dealer. So there's going to be a betting, then a pot shake, and trick phase, and all these, we'll get into them. Let's start with the betting phase. How it works is everyone simultaneously is going to bet on the outcome of the trick. So how the original game works is you were rolling 2 dice, and you're going to sum them up. So let's say these 2 dice were the example of Cho Han. As you can see, this was even because it was the outcome summed was even. As you can see, this one is odd. So in the original game of Cho Han, you would just do that. People would bet, you'd roll dice, see the outcome. In this one, though, how the outcome works is the highest card and the lowest card are going to be the dice in the trick. And the other cards, so the other 2 cards in the 4-player example, are just going to be ignored. So players are now going to be simultaneously placing bets on what they think are going to be odd and even. So maybe the dealer here thinks they're going to put 3 on even, and purple does 1 on odd, and green does 2 on even, and this is all simultaneously, and maybe 3 does, or the blue cube does 3 on even. You can choose not to bet, and also if a player doesn't have any of these tokens, any yen bills, they will not be betting, and you can bet any amount. But after that's done, then we'll move on to the next phase, the swap pot token phase. After that happens, the dealer has the option to either leave these pot tokens as they are or flip them, and that essentially would change the hierarchy, because this is a trump hierarchy. So if I lift this up here so you can see better, the red suit is strongest, then black, then green, then blue, but the dealer, maybe looking at their hand and maybe what they want to do, they can choose to flip this. So maybe let's say they did that and they put blue on top. Next we'll move into the third phase, the trick phase, and it starts with the dealer. So the dealer is going to be the person with this card. So again, it's the twisted die. They're going to choose a card to play. They can play any card they want, and they're going to declare the suit and then place it face down. So they're playing to the trick a green. And now players are going to clockwise play into the trick. They must follow suit, so if it comes to the blue die, but they're going to be playing face down. So they can play any card they want. Maybe they play this one face down, and they must follow suit. So maybe this player plays that face down, and then purple comes over here, and they must play green face down. And I should say anatomy of the cards here, just so it's important. There are no numbers. It's the kind of dashes in a way. So like that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4 is this box. Also, you can just look at the die, right? So if you didn't know what those characters are, you can just look at the die. I'll explain why there's gold pips and then black pips later, but there's also 6 and then there's 5 somewhere. But so this player is going to play a 3. So once all the players have played a card face down, the cards are revealed and the outcomes are determined. So the outcomes are going to be the highest card and the lowest card. Since everyone followed suit, the suit hierarchy doesn't matter right now, and it would just be the highest and the lowest. So as you can see, the highest is a 6, the lowest is a 2. Those were the 2 dice that were rolled in this example. So it ended up being even was the outcome. If there's ever a matching suit pip, like in this example, if this player had played a 2 in the gold pips, as opposed to this player over here who played a 2 in the black pips, the black is always weaker than the gold. Think of this as like a 2 and like a 2.5. So now we are moving on to the swap pot tokens. So the 2 outcomes, now that they're determined, you're going to look at those suits. Possibly there might be 2 suits, but in this case there's just 1. So if there's 1 suit, you're just going to move that to the top. So since it was green, the green's going to go to the top. If there were 2 suits, like let's say that 6 was actually in the blue suit and it was the highest, or let's say the 6 was in the black suit, just for the example, you take out the 2 suits that were effective. So in this example, we said it was a black 6 and a green 2. You're going to put the strongest one on top and the weakest one on bottom. So it would look kind of like that. But in this case, if we rewind where it was blue, green, then black, green got removed and put on top. So now green is the strongest. Next, the 2 players who played the highest and lowest are going to get $1 each from the bank. So it's going to go to this player and then $1 over to this player, the green die. Next, you see if there's any special share, which we'll cover later. And then now we're going to get into normal share. So this is just giving out points for correct betting. If you bet correctly, you're going to get double the amount. If you didn't, you're just going to lose it. So as you can see, it was even. So the odds are just going to go away. So this person bet odd and everyone else bet even. So this person put in 3, so they're going to get 6 back. That is this red and 5, and we'll just do that for the other ones. Now with that done, you're going to find out who played the strongest card. So that was the highest and the strongest suit. That's 6 in this case. They're going to be the dealer or the lead player for the next round. They're going to take this card. Then you're just going to collect the trick. These are going to go face down, out, and then you're going to start the phase again. You're going to keep going until every player has 1 card left in hand. So you don't play all of the tricks in your hand, all the cards in your hand. You're going to play all but 1. And then you're going to see whoever has the most points at the end, and that is the winner. The last thing to explain is the special share. How a special share works is if the highest and the lowest are the same number. So if the highest and the lowest are the same number and it's not a 1, that's the simplest case. Like in this case, notice how the lowest was a 3 black and the highest was a 3 green. In this case, players who bet odd are going to receive a bonus of 20 yen. So 20 yen token over here. The other special case is if they're both 1s played. So just imagine this was a 1 and a 1. Then the dealer if they're betting odd, is going to receive a dividend equal to the wager amount. And then the players, if it's a 1-1, regardless of the bet outcome, are going to lose their wager and do not receive any dividend. And that's how to do the special shares. The very last thing to explain is everyone gets a doubling token. And it works how you would expect. When you make a wager, you can just put the doubling on it, and that would double your wins if you make it. Again, if you're off, it just goes away. And everyone has that once in the game. And that's how to play Cho Han, trick-taking game. So that is Trick a Fixer, Cho Han, trick-taking game, and Yokai Septet Pocket Edition. Before I get into final thoughts, I do want to say Cho Han and Yokai Pocket Edition were sent to me by Dan of Ninja Star Games. So take that with everything, bias, grain of salt, totally. Trick a Fixer I bought at Tokyo Game Market from the lovely Pack Skill. They were so nice. Absolutely wonderful. So I did get this one at Tokyo Game Market a few cycles ago. Let's start with the Pocket Edition because Yokai is an amazing game. You know it's an amazing game. Of course it gets the seal. And this Pocket Edition is so nice. It is funny, card games generally small, and the addition of Pocket, or the addition of Yokai Septet earlier, is a small enough game. Definitely some room in the box, and I guess that's obvious by this, but I love it. Of course, this is my new addition because I just love the fact that you can, travel it, store it, keep it nicer. Just a classic game. So why not have a wonderful, wonderful addition that is cards, those sliding scoring scales is just perfect. You don't need the tokens. This is probably what I'm gonna keep if I keep it. I even actually put, don't tell anyone, I am going to put the 7 suitors and the multiple suits in this because I just removed the false bottom, and then that's what I keep. And I'm gonna give this to a friend because they've loved Yokai every time we played, so they don't mind the size. They're like, sure, yeah, no, that sounds amazing. So yeah, this is just wonderful. So excited for this edition. It's so slick. I can't wait for this to just get out there more. Yokai's amazing. Go check it out. I think this and Cho Han are, and I think Trick a Fixer are on Dan's, on Ninja Star, the site. So definitely check this out. I know Dan was at KublaCon as well, showing off this new Pocket Edition, which is so wonderful. So yeah, huge seal. We love Pocket Edition here. Now we're going to get into Trick a Fixer and Cho Han. Let's talk Trick a Fixer next. So we've covered Napoleon-ish games on the channel. I think Mighty was good. We liked Mighty. There's something to Trick a Fixer, which is wild though. So what it does is what I've seen people do. I mean, Sean Ross, speaking of Sean Ross, because one feather in the cap this has is the 2-player rules for Yokai, which is absolutely amazing. We love the 2-player that Sean did in here. But speaking of Sean Ross in the 2-player edition, he is so good at re-implementing older games. But Sean does this. He does a great job of taking older games and making them new, fresh, modern, new coats of paint, and having these improvements that get to the gameplay in fun, interesting ways. So it was interesting when I heard that they were going to tackle Napoleon in their own kind of twist ways. So I think Pack Skill does interesting things, especially I think Roulette Taking is a wonderful game, where they can have some wackiness added. And I was like, okay, how is this specific design circle going to tackle a re-implementation of an old traditional game? And I don't know if it hits for me personally because, and maybe it's just specifically because Napoleon is so many edge cases. I mean, just look at this card. They do a good job of trying to handle that. Like the fact that this card even exists is really, really nice. It's really, really cool. But as evidenced by this card existing, the traditional game of Napoleon, which is here pretty much, already has so much going on in edge cases. So I'm a little bit predisposed to not loving it. I'm not the biggest fan of like edge cases and just like remembering what can like get you and having players trying to remember that. I'm not the biggest fan of that. And then add on top of that is what they've added. So I think there's kind of 2 systems that they've added. They've added the incentive to bid to be the boss in this game, the chief, or the person who declares what Trump is. And that is really cool. Love it. I think it's fun to give a bonus of points to the person who bids the most. That's really, really fun. There's some tension into like players bidding because they're like, well, I think I actually can get like 16 or 17 face cards, but I'm going to bid 13 because I think I can bid 1 and then someone will bid there and I can actually then bid 16. So there's some fun like, oh, I can actually get 2 points out of this like track that's going to give me, or sorry, 2 steps forward out of this track that's going to give me points at the end. There's a nice tension to it. And also, then you can have 2 rules cards that come out. So you actually can have a say in the rules cards. And I also like the rules card system. I'm going to split up rule card system and rule cards themselves. The rule card system is cool because the person who becomes the boss, it doesn't get to have that, possibly, that say into what rules are in because they're the last person to say something. The first card doesn't take effect. It still eventually takes effect, which is nice. But unless they were, 2 turns ago to bid, they actually didn't have a say on what went out. And that's a really cool system. I really like that system. But, and why I separated the rule cards from the system, I think the rule cards, sadly, they just make the game a little like, it's like a bridge too far for me. So like you already have this, which is like working on Taylor maximum capacity of like remembering, oh, that does that and that does that. And again, they do a great job, the fact that the card exists. And also like on the 2s, they say, same. They're like, hey, FYI, if this is with all other same suits, it's gonna win. So they do a great job of, like, hey, like, here's reminders. This is what the old game was. But they don't, and this is a personal thing, they don't clean up the old game. They're like, this is the old game and we're gonna tack stuff onto it. And they don't clean up the old game at all. They like lean into it. So like with these cards, like 3s get promoted, 4s get promoted, and they all get promoted in their own weird way. Like even this one, the Joker gets promoted to being Trump, but it's the lowest Trump. It's like, okay. And then like all these things like, oh, pass a card, discard a card, as is like, okay. The same 2 doesn't rule the thing. So it's cool that this system exists. It's cool like there's like a smorgasbord. But I think for me, in a game that was cool but wasn't to my liking because of all the edge cases, they've essentially added a more edge case and kind of sometimes an edge case denier, like when you take out like the no same 2. So I think the part of the additions are cool. The bidding is cool. Adding a rule is cool in theory if the rules were like a little bit simpler. But I think the rules themselves push it to me to be just a little bit too, I don't even know if wacky is the right word, just like a little too if this then that for me. So it stinks. Like I think maybe with a little bit more streamlining or a little bit more kind of smoothness, I think it would appeal to my taste. There's people out there that would like this. Like if you like Napoleon, if you like those kind of hierarchical, it almost feels like Skull King, right? Like it's like, oh, the Skull King wins, but not to a mermaid, but like, like that kind of hierarchy. If you like that, if you don't mind that Napoleon and you wanted something that gives players a fun choice on the bidding, that makes the bidding a little more juicy, because it already is like a juicy thing. I think Napoleon's like a good solid, or mighty, a good solid base. This just adds a couple new things onto it. One I thought was cool, the other one I was like a little bit bridge too far. So yeah, I think, so there's some people who like this. I think for me, it's a little much. Overall, cool idea. I hope to see what they do in the future on maybe, like, we're going to cover what they did, their take on Hearts, and I liked that one. I mean, we'll keep that final thoughts for that video, but I think on a simpler game, the additions that they do are slick. I think if this in this one, their additions were much, and then the game is already much, so then it became too much. TOO much and TWO too much. Okay, moving on. Cho Han trick-taking game. Not my favorite. On the channel, I don't tend to cover too many games that I don't love because it's not fun to be a little Debbie Downer. Not my favorite. But the cool things about this game, I'll talk about the cool things about this game. There's some fun Trump hierarchy, kind of like Boast or Nothing, a little bit like that. And then also, it's fun to bet. But this is a betting, gambling game, like through and through. And you need to have those expectations going in. I did not for the first game or two. I did for the other ones, and that did make it better, but this is definitely just a gambling game. It is interesting that you can see the same like design circle, because I don't know if PAX Guild is a group of people or one person. It's always, you know, a little tough sometimes. Same design circle, tackle, roulette, which is a gambling betting game, and trick taking, and then Cho Han, which is a gambling betting trick taking game. And I don't know if it's because roulette has more dimensions to it than Cho Han. Cho Han's literally just rolling dice, and randomly you get odd or even. Not too much nuance there. But in roulette, it's like, do you want to bet 50-50? Do you want to bet 3-1? Do you want to go 1-50? So there's like that fraction of nuance to roulette compared to Cho Han, but that fraction does a lot of work. It covers a huge gap, as evidence in how I felt of Cho Han 2 roulette taking game, which you know, same group, same circle, same concept of betting gambling game with trick taking. But there's a few things. So, and again, I'm just going to compare them. I don't know if that's a fair comparison. I don't know if that's what they wanted. Maybe they wanted to be just more of like a gambling game and not a trick taking game. But I think it's a fair comparison, so I'm going to keep doing it. In roulette taking game, the trick play is interesting. It's cool to have like the trump and whatever. Especially because the outcome leads to like the last trick, and there's some fun things that you can do. Like you can bet red and then lead black to make red happen more. You can team up with someone to kind of get a certain category. Like if they want the top chunk and you want, you know, odds, you can see that, oh, maybe the 37, the 35 odd are still out there. Maybe that's what they're going for. We can work odds and top chunk together. That's kind of fun. This one, though, it's just you're betting on odd versus even, and you play face down. So what are you... Oh my gosh, I'm not trying to be... You play face down, so you don't quite know what is happening at all. You can card count, but it seems so funny to card count in a game that is so random. It's like trying to put raisins in your cookies. But some people like oatmeal raisin cookies. So this is oatmeal raisin cookies for all you raisin brand heads out there. This is just so... Oh man, this is just tough. I'm going to cover a couple more things that made it tough for me. The bank is just all these pieces, which is good. I mean, people don't like paper money. And so you made it tokens, but the tokens are hard to sort. We've just like pushed the pile in. And this is probably easier if you spoke Japanese, but the symbols are just tough. I don't know the symbols for things, especially when you get to the cards. And this is a big thing that was a detriment in my mind and in the game, is I don't know the numbers. I can't differentiate 5 from 6, you know? Like I thought this was 5 and then it's 6. Uh-oh. 4 was box, but it's just like, oh, 4 is box. Like I'm just memorizing symbols at this point. And if not, I have to like splay them all the way. I could kind of get 1, 2, 3. That made sense. But it's just tough when a game doesn't use numbers. That's just tough on a brain like mine. So the graphic design was a barrier as well. I think the betting simultaneously was tough because you just naturally are looking at what players are doing. It's hard. I wish I could just cover and reveal or something, or just like cover with my hand, but like the rules are just like, just bet, simultaneously bet. It's just supposed to be lighter and gamblier than maybe I was expecting, mixed with like the fiddliness mixed with playing the trick face down, which is like, that is very like, is this even trick taking vibe? Mixed with like, if you want to get a whiff of like strategy or like playing a certain way, you have to kind of like card count or pay attention to that. Especially because of the whole token system. Like the first round, you're like building the token system, and then like after a trick, it just changes, and then like you could even just like flip. So it's like, I don't know, it's a really light game, but there's a lot of like process around it. So it's like, why are we doing all this process if we're doing like a light game? I do feel like I would almost just rather roll dice and just randomly bid. Just take the trick taking out. Oh, I'm being mean. Okay. There's people who are like this. It's a very much so a gambling game. If you like gambling, and wanted to play a game that added trick-taking elements to gambling, you can do this. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I didn't like this game personally, but there might be someone out there who did. So yeah, if you like gambling, you wanted a game that's gambling and trick-taking, I would personally recommend roulette taking. But if you like dice and gambling and trick-taking and betting, you can try this one out. That is Cho Han. Maybe I got the rules wrong. I don't think I did. That's always a concern. Anyway, that was Trick and Fixer, Cho Han, and the amazing Yokai Septet Pocket Edition. Love this one. I would say that maybe I'm just getting a post not nice regret right now. PAX Guild has some games like roulette taking game, which we mentioned, which I think are wonderful, and Angels and Demons, which we're going to cover here in a bit, which I also liked. So I am definitely still interested in that circle. I think they do really cool stuff, and it's always fun to look at their games and see what they're up to. Especially the production. The production is always fun. I think it's very cool and indie in a fun way. So shouts out to them. Can't wait to see what they do next. And thank you again to Dan for sending these. And that is it. That was a raw Taylor moment. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. You're the best. And I'll catch you later. Have a wonderful summer. Bye.